Hello, dear friends. Each of us has, at least once, caught ourselves thinking about what awaits us after our life comes to an end. This question has troubled and fascinated humanity since the beginning of its existence. We reflect on it when we lose loved ones, when we go through difficult moments, or simply when we ponder the meaning of our existence. Today, I want to talk to you about one of the most intriguing and mysterious topics: life after death. It might seem impossible to discuss something that no one can confirm with certainty, but this is where the most interesting part lies. We have scientific studies, thousands of documented near-death experiences, ancient teachings, and modern theories, and all of them, like pieces of a giant puzzle, come together to form a fascinating picture. Imagine this. Every day on our planet, thousands of people find themselves on the brink of life and death. Some of them return and share astonishing stories about what they saw and felt. Their experiences are so similar that they cannot be mere coincidences. At the same time, modern science is constantly finding new explanations for what happens to our consciousness at the moment of dying. We live in an amazing time when ancient knowledge meets cutting-edge scientific discoveries. What was once considered mysticism and superstition is now being studied in laboratories worldwide. Scientists are investigating the phenomenon of consciousness, trying to determine whether it can exist independently of the body. Doctors are documenting inexplicable cases where people in a state of clinical death receive information they could not have obtained through conventional means. In our discussion, we will not blindly believe everything we hear, nor will we dismiss what we cannot yet explain. Together, we will explore this topic from different perspectives, relying on facts and research, while acknowledging that there is still room in the world for mystery and wonder. Let's embark on this fascinating journey together to get closer to understanding one of the greatest questions of human existence. Looking to the past often helps us better understand the present. It is interesting to note that almost all ancient civilizations had their own beliefs about the afterlife. In ancient Egypt, for example, people believed that after death, the soul embarked on a journey through the underworld, where it would face various trials. This is why pharaohs were buried with numerous items that could be useful in this journey. The ancient Greeks imagined the afterlife as a realm of shadows, a place where all souls of the deceased would go. They believed that the soul was ferried across an underground river by the mysterious boatman Charon, while the three-headed dog Cerberus stood guard at the entrance to the underworld. These images have become so deeply embedded in culture that we still use them in art and literature today. Indian tradition offered a completely different perspective on life after death. According to it, the soul undergoes multiple reincarnations until it reaches enlightenment. This teaching of reincarnation has had a profound impact on the worldview of millions of people, and today finds unexpected parallels in some scientific theories about the multiverse. With the rise of monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the concept of heaven and hell as the final destinations of the soul after death emerged. This idea has significantly shaped the development of Western civilization and continues to influence how many people perceive death and the afterlife. But the most astonishing thing is that, despite vast distances and a lack of contact between ancient cultures, their beliefs about the afterlife share striking similarities. Nearly all include the idea that death is not the end, but merely a transition to another form of existence. Almost every culture speaks of some form of judgment or trial after death, as well as retribution for actions committed during life. In the 20th century, science began systematically studying these ancient beliefs, trying to understand why such diverse cultures arrived at similar ideas about post-mortem existence. The first serious studies of near-death experiences emerged, revealing that many ancient descriptions of the afterlife eerily echoed the accounts of people who had experienced clinical death in modern times. In recent decades, science has made tremendous progress in studying what happens to a person at the moment of death. It all started with the publication of Dr. Raymond Moody's book, Life After Life, in 1975. He was the first to collect and systematize hundreds of cases of near-death experiences, demonstrating that they shared remarkable similarities. Modern research, using highly advanced medical equipment, has allowed scientists to delve even deeper into this process. Researchers have discovered that at the moment the heart stops, the brain exhibits a surge of extraordinary activity, For several minutes after the heart ceases to beat, neurons continue to function, and this activity even exceeds the normal waking state. A team of researchers from the University of Michigan conducted experiments on laboratory animals and found that at the moment of death, the brain releases a large amount of neurotransmitters, substances responsible for transmitting signals between neurons. This could explain the vivid visions and sensations reported by people who have survived clinical death. Studies of consciousness during death are particularly fascinating. Doctors from various countries have recorded cases in which patients, while in a state of clinical death, were able to accurately describe what was happening around them, including the actions of medical personnel and conversations. These accounts are especially valuable because, at the moment the heart stops, a person should not be able to see or hear in a conventional manner. Neuroscientists have also discovered that the dying process triggers mechanisms in the brain similar to those activated during deep meditation or under the influence of psychedelic substances. This could explain the sense of peace and acceptance often described by people who have had near-death experiences. It is important to note that science does not rule out the possibility of consciousness existing after the body's death. Some scientists propose the hypothesis that consciousness may be a fundamental property of the universe, similar to space and time, and that our brain functions as a kind of receiver for this consciousness. This theory finds certain parallels in quantum physics, where the observer plays a key role in physical processes. Let's examine some of the most common myths about life after death, which are often mistaken for truth. Perhaps the most famous of them is the existence of a tunnel with a light at the end. Indeed, many people who have experienced clinical death report this phenomenon. However, scientists have discovered that this vision may be related to the way the retina of the eye dies. When retinal cells begin to experience a lack of oxygen, they create a specific pattern of excitation that the brain interprets as movement through a tunnel toward the light. Another popular myth is the out-of-body experience, where a person supposedly floats near the ceiling and observes what is happening from above. Many see this as proof of the soul's existence, capable of leaving the body. But studies have shown that such sensations can be artificially induced by stimulating specific areas of the brain. For example, scientists have found that stimulating the temporoparietal region of the brain can cause a person to experience a sense of separation from their body. Encounters with deceased relatives are another common element of near-death experiences, often interpreted as confirmation of an afterlife. However, neuroscientists suggest that during oxygen deprivation, the brain may activate old memories and images of loved ones, creating the illusion of an actual encounter with them. It is interesting that many people believe that near-death experiences are the same for everyone. In reality, research shows that they are highly influenced by cultural context and a person's individual beliefs. For example, Buddhists often see images related to their religion, while people from Western cultures more frequently report encounters with angels or the experience of passing through a tunnel. Another myth is the idea that all people who have survived clinical death return with a positive experience and lose their fear of death. While this does happen frequently, there are also documented cases of negative near-death experiences, where people felt fear, anxiety, and even had visions resembling traditional depictions of hell. It is important to understand that debunking these myths does not mean that near-death experiences are unworthy of attention. On the contrary, scientific explanations of certain aspects help us better understand what happens to human consciousness at the moment of death and bring us closer to unraveling one of the greatest mysteries of existence. Among the many stories of near-death experiences, some deserve special attention as they have been meticulously documented by medical professionals. One of the most well-known is the case of Pam Reynolds, which occurred in 1991. During a complex brain surgery, her body temperature was deliberately lowered to 20 degrees, and her blood was completely drained from her body. By all indicators, her brain was not functioning. However, upon waking, she was able to accurately describe the course of the operation, including the unusual shape of the surgical saw and the conversations of the doctors. Another astonishing case took place in a hospital in Hartford, where a patient, during cardiac arrest, saw an old shoe on the ledge of the building's third floor. A nurse who checked this information indeed found the shoe exactly where the patient had indicated. It is important to note that the person had no way of knowing about this shoe before their near-death experience. Medical archives contain a case of a person who was blind from birth and, during clinical death, saw the world around them for the first time in their life. Later, they were able to describe objects and colors they had never seen before. This is particularly fascinating because their descriptions matched reality, despite having no prior visual experience. Doctors from the University of Southampton conducted a large-scale study involving 2,000 patients who had survived cardiac arrest. More than 40% of them reported some form of conscious experience at a time when, according to all medical indicators, their brains should not have been functioning. About 10% were even able to describe in detail events that took place around them during that period. A particularly remarkable case occurred in a Dutch hospital, where a patient during resuscitation was able to accurately describe where the nurse had placed his dentures, even though this happened while he was in a state of clinical death. Later, he recounted that he had observed the events as if from outside his body, and his description of the medical staff's actions fully matched reality. All these cases have been carefully verified and documented, making them particularly valuable for scientific research. They do not prove the existence of life after death, but they do make us reconsider the nature of consciousness and its potential capabilities, which we have yet to fully explain using modern scientific methods. In recent years, several intriguing theories have emerged attempting to explain the phenomenon of life after death from the perspective of modern science. One of the most fascinating is the theory of quantum immortality. It is based on the idea of multiple worlds, where every possible event creates a new reality. According to this theory, at the moment of death, consciousness might jump into the version of reality where the person remains alive. The theory of multiple universes suggests the existence of an infinite number of parallel worlds, where different versions of ourselves exist simultaneously. Some scientists believe that our consciousness may be connected to all these versions, and that death is simply a shift of attention from one version of reality to another. This idea resonates with ancient spiritual teachings about reincarnation, but explains them through the lens of modern physics. Of particular interest is the information theory of consciousness. According to this theory, our consciousness is a specific pattern of information that could theoretically exist independently of a physical medium. Just as the same program can run on different computers, consciousness could continue to exist after the death of the physical body in some other form. Some researchers are developing the idea of the holographic nature of the universe, where information about the whole is contained in each of its parts. In this case, our individual consciousness could be part of a larger informational structure that does not disappear with the death of the physical body. This theory finds unexpected support in studies of quantum entanglement in particles. Recently, the theory of biocentrism has gained attention, suggesting that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe rather than a byproduct of brain activity. This means that the death of the physical body does not necessarily imply the end of consciousness. This approach overturns the traditional view that matter is primary in relation to consciousness. It is important to understand that all these theories remain hypotheses that cannot yet be fully confirmed or refuted by modern scientific methods. However, they open new perspectives for understanding the nature of consciousness and its connection to physical reality. Perhaps we are on the verge of a scientific revolution that will completely change our understanding of life, death, and the nature of reality. Why is it so important for people to believe in the existence of life after death? Psychologists note that this belief plays a crucial role in our emotional well-being. It helps us cope with the fear of death, which is deeply ingrained in the human psyche. When we believe that death is not the end, but merely a transition to another form of existence, it becomes easier to accept our mortality. Interestingly, the fear of death influences our behavior much more than we realize. Studies show that even unconscious reminders of mortality can significantly alter our decisions and actions. People who are reminded of death are more likely to adhere to traditional values, become more conservative in their views, and cling more strongly to their familiar beliefs. Psychologists have discovered that accepting the idea of death goes through several stages. Initially, a person typically denies the possibility of death, then feels anger at the inevitability of the event, tries to bargain with fate, falls into depression, and finally reaches acceptance. This process can take years, and many people never fully reach the stage of complete acceptance. However, those who have learned to accept the finiteness of life often find that this realization makes each moment more valuable and meaningful. They begin to live more consciously, worry less about trivial matters, and devote more attention to truly important things: relationships with loved ones, self-fulfillment, and helping others. Modern psychotherapists have developed numerous techniques to help people cope with the fear of death. They suggest not avoiding thoughts of mortality, but instead using them as motivation for a fuller and more meaningful life. For example, the practice of gratitude, where we find reasons to be grateful every day, helps us focus on the positive aspects of life rather than constantly worrying about its end. It is especially important to understand that accepting death does not mean having constant gloomy thoughts about it. On the contrary, this understanding often leads to a more joyful and fulfilling experience of each day. People who have learned to calmly accept the idea of mortality often say that this awareness makes their lives richer and helps them not to postpone important decisions and actions. Summing up our discussion, I would like to emphasize the most important thing. Regardless of what awaits us after death, the most valuable thing we have is the present moment. Right now, we can love, create, dream, and make this world a better place. Science continues to explore the mysteries of consciousness and death. Religions offer their own answers to eternal questions. But the greatest miracle happens here and now. The miracle of life itself. Each of us sooner or later thinks about the finiteness of existence, and that is completely normal. These thoughts can be frightening, but they can also become a source of wisdom and a deeper understanding of the value of each day we live. When we realize that our time is limited, we begin to pay more attention to how we spend it, with whom we communicate, and what things we consider truly important. Remember that thousands of people who have had near-death experiences speak of an astonishing sense of peace and acceptance that they felt. Many of them say that after this experience, their lives changed. They began to appreciate simple joys more, fear the future less, learn to find happiness in small things, and devote more time to their loved ones. Perhaps the main lesson we can learn from all the studies on life after death is that we should not wait for some special moment to start living life to the fullest. Every day gives us the opportunity to do something meaningful, to say kind words to those we love, to start turning our dreams into reality. Let us remember that we are all part of something greater, whether it be the cycle of nature, the informational field of the universe, or a divine plan. And each of us, with our thoughts, words, and actions, contributes our unique imprint to the greater picture of the world. The way we live our lives, the mark we leave in the hearts of others, that is our true immortality. Do not be afraid to live life to the fullest. Do not postpone important words and actions. Cherish every moment, every meeting, every new day. After all, it is from such moments that true happiness is built. And remember, as long as we are alive, we always have the opportunity to make our lives and the lives of those around us better, brighter, and happier. Finally, dear friends, I want to thank you for being with me all this time. I hope our conversation has helped you see the topic of life and death from a new perspective. If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel. Many more interesting topics await us ahead. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss new episodes. Share this video with your friends and loved ones. Perhaps it will help someone find answers to important questions. See you in the next videos.